Hello, good morning. Welcome to St. Peter's in Hove. I'm Father Alexander. It's raining here, and there's even a distant rumble of thunder, and the rain is very soft, light rain, which is exactly the type of rain we want. So, thanks be to God. Now, we're on our 197th step in our walking tour through the Bible, and we're going to look at a very small psalm, 130, 130, brackets 131. It's incredibly short. It's very similar to that other psalm, which was about I only stand and wait. But here it goes. O Lord, my heart is not proud, nor haughty my eyes. I have not gone after things too great, nor marvels beyond me. Truly I have set my soul in silence and peace. As a child has rest in its mother's arms, even so my soul. O Israel, hope in the Lord, both now and forever. And that's it. What is this psalm about? Well, it's a prayer. It's not about a man in some terrible situation. It's about a man or woman praying. It is about the right attitude to have when you come into the presence of God. My heart is not proud. If your heart is proud when you come into the presence of God, then coming into the presence of God will not do you any good at all. In fact, you will have waterproofed yourself against the presence of God. You will have fortified yourself against the presence of God. God can only enter hearts that are humble. He can't enter hearts that are proud, because proud hearts essentially don't want him. Proud hearts have everything they need. Proud hearts are self-sufficient. Well, we as Christians must not be proud, because we must not be self-sufficient, because we are the people who need God. Simple, isn't it? So let's stop being proud. Quite difficult in practice. And then he goes on to say, just to illustrate what pride really is, nor haughty my eyes. Now, haughty is not a sort of word you use every day. Haughty means it's connected to the English word hauteur, which of course is the French word hauteur, which means height. So if you say, I live in Caversham Heights, you say in French, j'habite les hauteurs de Caversham, the heights, les hauteurs. Now, so haughty means having your nose in the air, being a bit stuck up, being looking up rather than looking towards the person you're talking, looking away from the person you're talking, not looking down. It's the opposite of humilis, humble, which is to do with the earth. I've not got, then he goes on, haughty, it's more than just haughty, it's also ambitious. I've not gone after things too great, nor marvels beyond me. Ambition is a sin. It's very important we remember this. And indeed, nowadays the world, in its perversion, has made ambition a virtue, the desire to get on, the desire to be, to have sharp elbows, the idea that one should reach the top. These are all thought to be good things that should be encouraged, particularly in young people. So you can go to classes about self-assertion and so on and so forth, and you're told that low self-esteem is bad for you. Well, no, pride is a sin, haughtiness is a sin, ambition is a sin. Now, if only we would listen to God, we would not be in the mess we're in today. Ambition, pride, and haughtiness have brought down governments. I'm alluding, of course, to the famous Partygate saga, where the government made laws for everybody, but decided not to keep the laws itself had made. They didn't have to make those laws, by the way. Rather, they imposed them on other people, lectured other people, but they made an exception for themselves. Anybody who was found breaking those laws was fined, etc. And most of us were terrified into keeping these laws. That sort of haughtiness, that is just not acceptable, because it is an offence against truth, and it's an offence against God, an offence against truth, in that essentially we're all equal, particularly in a democracy, whatever office we hold, but we're all equal before God. We're all his creatures. We're all brothers and sisters. You might remember Leona Helmsley, if you're my age. She was a New York person, and I think she was some sort of mogul in New York, and she said she was done for tax evasion, and she said taxes are for the little people. No, sorry, love, taxes are for everybody. Don't make exceptions for yourself. Now, we often ascribe to a doctrine of personal exceptionalism. This doctrine is imaginary, and we should stop ascribing to it at once. We're all in this together. So instead of being haughty, what should we be? I might well have said this before, I've certainly said it in sermons. Be humble. Well, humble isn't really part of our vocabulary today. So what I would say is be affable. Again, a good word, but not one we use often. In other words, be the sort of person who can talk to anybody. Be socially at your ease with people from all backgrounds of life. That really is essential. Stuck-up people, snobs, are the most tedious people imaginable. The worst type of snobs, as I once did a podcast with Damien Thompson about this, the worst type of snobs are, of course, clerical snobs, the ones who join the church to get on. They don't just join the church to get on, but while they're in the church, they have a sideline in getting on in society. This is really ridiculous. And of course, it's so ridiculous. John Betjeman wrote that poem about snobbery, Phone for the Fish Knives, Norman. Do look at it. You don't become a clergy person, you don't become a priest or a religious in order to get on in life. Some of the worst snobs I've known, sadly, have been priests and religious. Particularly among the religious, it's very bad. The idea that my religious order is better than your religious order and so on. How tedious, how boring, and how completely opposed to the will of God that is. So let us leave snobbery behind. And let's remember that snobbery is a particularly English vice and is to be found in virtually every town and city in England. Not so much Wales, maybe not so much most parts of Scotland, and not so much Northern Ireland. But certainly it's around. Let's not be snobbish. Let's talk to everybody. That's rather important, don't you think? Particularly when you come into church. And of course, the Epistle to St. James does mention how rich people come into the synagogue and sweep past the poor people and say, here, hold my cushion, or whatever they're saying. We don't want that. Hello, Mrs. Jones, it's great to see you, is what we want instead. And Mrs. Jones replies, hello, Duke of so-and-so, lovely to see you too. That's what we want. We're all in this together. And actually, as Catholics, that is actually true. I know that politicians say that just for the sake of it, but for us, it's true. We do know in the early church that there were slaves who were members of the early church. There were also Roman senators that were members of the early church. Pope Linus is supposed to have been a Roman senator. There were also members of the imperial family who were part of the early church. Flavia Domitilla, who may have been the great niece of the Emperor Domitian or something like that. She was a member of the early church. So there were all sorts of very grand people, and they all mucked in, and they said, I'm just off to the Agape. Oh, is anybody going to be there? Oh, just a bunch of slaves and criminals and a scattering of Roman senators. Okay, so let's put it aside. Truly, and so what do we, so we put that aside, what do we take on? Because don't forget, when you throw something away, the space is automatically filled by something else. Nature abhors a vacuum. So instead of haughtiness and pride and ambition, what do we embrace? Truly, I have set myself in silence and in peace. As a child has rest in its mother's arms, even so my soul. Silence, peace, rest. Now, what is rest? Rest is inertia. Rest is not moving. Rest is being content with what you've got. I think what he's talking about here is that what's talked about by Friar Lawrence of the Resurrection, the practice of the presence of God, living in the present moment, not worrying about what's going to happen in the future, not thinking about when is my important letter or my check coming in the post or anything like that, enjoying the present moment. God has given us what we have now. We are like children in their mother's arms. We are surrounded by the love of God. Let's enjoy the love of God that we have. If you haven't read Friar Lawrence's book on the practice of the presence of God, do please read it. It's a very, very short book, and it is a book of extreme genius. He was a cook in the Sulpician monastery in Paris, and all for 70 years of religious life, he just practiced the presence of God. Everything he did was done in the presence of God. This moment was the moment in which God was mediating salvation to him. Now that's rather important. Ambitious people are restless. They say, well, I'm here in Mykonos, but I really feel I ought to be in Rhodes because the parties are better over there, or I ought to be in Corfu because it's great over there. I've just heard so-and-so's flown in. You're never happy, are you, when you are ambitious? Because there's always fresh fields to conquer. Let's be content with the field we have. O Israel, hope in the Lord, both now and forever. And in the end, the snob, the ambitious person, puts their hope in themselves and in their fellow human beings. They'll be disappointed in both, I'm sorry to say, but you will be disappointed. Yourself will disappoint you. If you're honest, other people will most definitely disappoint you. Don't put your trust in them. Hope in the Lord. And the Lord has placed us here this morning, now. Let us use this moment to absorb the love of God. Hope that helps. Bye.